Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have two special guests with me. I have DiPietro and Marcey Donnelly. They are the authors of The Inside Guide, Breaking Through to Intuitive Wisdom and Inspired Living. Michael is a transformational coach who utilizes a unique approach to coaching. He uses his intuition to guide others to awaken to their true authenticity by overcoming their limiting beliefs to achieve their full potential. Welcome, Michael and Marcey. It's a pleasure to have both of you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
So we're going to talk about loving presence embodiment, being guided intuitively to live inspired. So I thought it would be beneficial for you both to kind of share your stories and how you met one another and how you wrote a book together. And we're going to talk a little bit about, how we can actually embody that loving presence today. But let's start off with your stories.
Okay, well, I'll jump in first, and then maybe Marcey can follow up with her version of the events. So I've been doing transformative inner work for about 30 years, and I did a lot of executive coaching in my 40s, and in my 50s, I started to get more transformative and deeper and spiritual in my work. And about 5 years ago, I met Marcey, and we started working together. She came on board as a client, and we did some beautiful work together. For about maybe 2 years. And then the pandemic hit, and I channeled an outline for a book in an afternoon. The whole outline came through. It was in 2021. And I knew I needed someone to work with. I don't write by myself very well when there's a blank page, but when I have someone dialogue with, a lot comes through. And so I was kind of wondering who that person was, and I kept meditating on it, and Marcey popped up in my meditations, and I'm like, well, Marcey's a client, maybe not the best idea to work with a client. So I just parked it aside. And a second time, a few days later, she came up again, and I said, okay, interesting, make note of that. A third time she came up in my meditation, very clear. And right after that, I picked up the phone and just said, Marcey, do you want to write a book with me? And that's all I said. And she just said yes, without any, she just felt it right away. And it was such a beautiful yes. And since then, we've really taken a journey together of collaboration and just dialoguing. And she helped pull so much more of the content out of me for the book. And then we've just grown into business partners together, and just really, we have an amazing synergy and just a beautiful working relationship. That was something I always wanted in my heart. And I've tried partnership in the past with people, and it never really manifested. But I say I've struck gold with Marcey because she's amazing.
I would bet you're a manifesting generator, Michael, the human design, that the fact that you have to communicate.
That's Marcey. She's the manifesting
generator. Okay, because you said I got a dialogue with others. I'm learning. I've had a few guests on the show talking about this, and I'm learning about it myself, and how me as a manifesting generator, I need to communicate with others.
Yeah, I'm a projector. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But that's the projectors. We need you guys. We're so dependent on the manifesting generators to help us, because this is what I learned is we're really interdependent. We can't do this. Some people can go it alone, but I've tried to walk a solitary path for a long time. And yeah, we need community, we need partnership, we need support, and this interdependence to really work together to get
absolutely. What a beautiful story. Now, Marcey, what's your side of that story? Is there?
My side is that I had been working with Michael for several years, because I'm a person who, like, on the outside, gosh, I look like I have, success, like I have the kids and the house and the community and the job but I still felt like inside something was missing. And so I would go to retreats and read books and conferences and listen to things, and it all, I was always looking outside for that something missing to fill that up. And so I'd have these peak mountaintop experiences where I would feel in the flow and peaceful and love and just the embodiment of this place that I wanted to live. But then I would have to go back into my reality and go back to what we call the village. And then all of a sudden, all that would be gone. And excuse me, I wanted that in my everyday life. And so I started working with Michael, and I found a lot of success. I can't even think back of what my life was like before this work, and what my head was, what was going on in my head. But it was a lot of stress, anxiety, highs and lows, a lot of not so fun things. And then my piece is all of a sudden, I'm in this great place, and he and I were even talking about kind of next things for me, and we'd had a little bit of a gap, and then all of a sudden I get this phone call, and usually I'm calling him needing to set up appointments, and he called me, and I thought, gosh, what's this for? And I couldn't get yes out fast enough, followed by, I've never written a book, don't know about the publishing world. And he's like, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. And since then, it's just been such a gift, because you can't learn this material, write this material without life and kind of the world and the universe then giving you opportunities to exercise your new tools. So it's hit me. I've hit my edges, and have learned amazing things. And I'm so excited that this next chapter of my life is opening up.
Yeah. And it's like, we all have our own unique abilities. And then when we collaborate with others, I feel like we can pick up on the strengths of others as well, and it just has this beautiful harmonization that takes place when we collaborate in those ways. And so, Michael, I was, reading about your story and how you had a turning point in your life where you wanted to change, and you were living in the big city, and, you knew that you wanted to shift in a way. And you talked a little bit about that, how in your 40s you were a transformational coach. And, this has happened to me several times, throughout my life. I mean, about 6 years ago, I quit my healthcare job of 20 years, started a business, moved from Florida all the way to the Pacific Northwest within 6 months. I mean, It was like this massive transition for me, and I haven't looked back since. And it has been a fantastic journey. And so I want to ask both of you, which one of you wants to answer this question, or both? How do we listen to our inner guidance to clear those obstacles, maybe those obstacles of fear, or certain programming that we may have from, our parents or our peers? And so that way we can change in a graceful way to live a life that is truly inspiring to all of us.
Gosh, so much comes to mind. Really, I think the inner guidance is, we need to learn to quiet the mind, and the mind runs interference over our natural intuitive guidance. And so when we can, I worked with a client yesterday, and she said, well, I can't meditate because my mind keeps getting in the way. But what we did is we just bypassed that, and we went directly to her heart space, and we sat in a receptive place in the heart, right? So it's almost like listening from the heart, right? And the mind is still doing its thing. It's fine. Like, minds are beautiful and wonderful, and like they're awesome to have this mind, but it's not where we get the deeper intuition. It's a quieter, intuitive knowing that comes from the heart space. And I think it involves just a listening and asking the right questions. So if we ask the right questions out into the universe, the answers come back to us through our own intuition, through the synchronicities, through the coincidences, and we just start to live in this different order of reality. It's there all the time, but we're just not paying attention to it. And so I think it's really this different orientation that we start to have by deepening and slowing down and taking those moments of inner listening. Right.
Yeah. And that's powerful. I think, a lot of what catapulted me into that big transition in my life was I started a meditation practice before that. And so I think you're spot on with that, Michael, is that we've got to calm that inner dialogue going on, and listen to it, show it some attention, and say, okay, why are you screaming at me, all the time? And really transmuting that. And so, Marcey, is there anything you want to add on that?
I think it's what I love about this work and the tools in the book is that kind of suppressing your mind or suppressing the thoughts that come up intuitively in your body, suppressing those and ignoring that does not work. So really this book, as mentioned, kind of guides you back to your inner voice, and through quiet times, learning about mind chatter versus like checking in with your body and learning how to use the things that make you distinctly yourself, and starting to pay attention to those inner voices will start guiding you to big decisions like, relocation, job changes, because sometimes our patterns just cycle in our brain. And I know I have a lot of mind chatter, and my brain could do amazing things. It's like this supercomputer. But if I'm not trusting and checking in with my body and what's right for me, and also, I mean, in the subtitle of our book is inspired, so living in spirit, finding out if these decisions are aligned with my purpose, kind of learning about those. And for me, it started very practically, like thinking back about the whys in my life, and then really better learning kind of what motivates me and what my purpose is. Then stuff, we call it the flow. I wanted to live in flow all the time. And and there's issues with doing that, right? And you have the flow right behind you. But once you start connecting to really your life purpose and what you're here for, and learning how to use your mind and body and get those aligned, then flow happens, and you're not worried about grasping it or trying to hold on to it or manifesting it in some phenomenal way. It's like you allow it to happen, and it's magical. I mean, it's amazing. It's this other layer of metaphysics that I didn't quite experience or understand. It would show up once in a while, but now it's really a way of life, which is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And because, when I just actually did a show about this yesterday, when you're in alignment, and when you're not in alignment, right? And it's kind of like your car. When your car's out of alignment, it keeps nudging you in a certain direction until you take the time to service it and, and fix it. And so, oftentimes we try to force ourselves into the flow, but that may not be where we need to be, at that time. And it takes a little bit of balance and patience, to allow, like you said, that word allow, to allow yourself to be in that flow state. And so I want to talk a little bit about loving presence embodiment. And so, both of you say that loving presence is the true guide within each of us. And so I want to ask you each that question is, how do we embody and connect with our innate loving nature, especially if we've been hurt and we've closed off that innate loving? It's in there, right? But sometimes we kind of shut that off. How do we tune back into that again? And how do we really embody that? Because organically, that's who we are as divine beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a deeper identity that we hold beyond any wounding. And once we can understand that wounded place, but disidentify with it, right? And that's the problem, is parts of the brain get identified with the wound, right? And then we say, I am that wound, versus I felt that wound, or, and so this deeper identity is a mystery. We call it loving presence, but it's really an infinite space inside of us, the divine, and we access it through our individuality. Like we don't have to get over being ourselves as separate, right? But that is the access point to understanding our connection with the all and something greater coming through us, right? A few years ago, I had a phrase I was working with. I'm part of something greater, and it's always coming through me. Right. And
I love that.
So just beginning to loosen the hold on our control and trying to have it all figured out, and letting this spaciousness permeate our being, right? It's there if we just start to loosen the hold. And but I like the term mystery, right? I use loving. There's a lot of terms I use kind of interchangeably. But ultimately, I like mystery, because love itself is such a mystery, you know, and loving this presence that we have within us, it can't be defined. And I think what's very helpful is when we can get to a place where we don't have to self-define ourselves, right? I don't have to say I'm this or I'm that, because we are this presence. And if we stop trying to figure it out up here, we can just live it.
Because we're everything and nothing, right? So we are everything, but yet we're nothing too.
Yeah. So we use the term loving presence, and then of course embodiment, because if we're not grounding it in our bodies, we're not living it in the everyday reality. And that's where we can really bring it back to the village, bring these enlightenments back to our body and our individuality, and ground it here in the here and now.
Yeah, that's powerful. And so, you know, what are some of the benefits that one can experience by embodying that loving presence here in the village?
I'm just going to say life is so much easier. I get so much more done with little effort because I'm not focusing on all of the stories around things, the trying to figure out why something is happening. I mean, it's such a gift to be able to easily stay present. And like you said, if I lean off of that, or if other things come up, it gives me language and tools to get grounded again and come back to myself, which is really where all the answers lie anyway. So I know for me, I've had more success. I've had a book writing opportunity pop up which is nice. And just this whole other, opportunity. I've been a better parent. I've been, a better community member, and things fall. It's that state of ease and flow. I mean, that's like one of our mantras is like ease and flow. That's how I want to live. And I still have dreams and hopes and stretch goals. And so it doesn't mean I'm just living kind of on top of the mountaintop in a meditation state all the time. No, I'm in deep with life and responsibilities, but things work themselves out so much easier. And it's and I don't it gives me space to like really dream.
Yeah, and that's
I think
powerful.
also, you know, in terms of benefits, sometimes we're carrying things. We really have, like that beautiful scene behind you. I imagine hiking up that mountain, right? And let's say we're hiking up and we have a backpack and we have bricks in our backpack, you know, and we're wondering why the journey is so hard. And then someone says, hey, you know, you can take off your backpack and take those bricks out of your backpack. And suddenly we realize we have that choice. We do that, and we continue the journey a lot lighter, a lot more effortlessly, right? And those bricks, those burdens that we carry are false notions we get from past experiences, things we're still carrying from childhood, even ancestral things we're carrying that go beyond our life, and ways we're still trying to work things out for our ancestors that have nothing to do with us, but we get caught in these ancestral inheritances. And so when we can free ourselves of those and put down those bricks, it's really a lighter feeling in the body, like a more vibrant feeling, just more energy, more vitality, more openness.
And it's like, you know, you don't climb a mountain with an open backpack and throw rocks in it the whole time you're trekking up that mountain, right? But that's what many of us are doing in our lives. This is what we're just throwing that baggage in and carrying it. And it takes a point where, you know, you just have to say, I surrender to this. And, you know, I open myself up to letting go of whatever I'm carrying. Like you said, ancestral baggage, parental baggage, you know, career, whatever it is, you know, that we carry. But many of us have more than one backpack on our back, and we're just lugging that up the hill. And who has time for that, you know? And so I want to talk about your book. Okay. So let's start moving in that direction. So your book, The Inside Guide, Breaking Through to Intuitive Wisdom and Inspired Living. I mean, you talked a little bit about how you and Marcey connected, but what actually inspired you to write this book? What inspired you to create this title? And what are some of the highlights that come up in this book?
Well, this book was swirling around in me for a number of years, and I knew I wanted to get a book out there. I just had so much tools and contents that I wanted to share with the world. And I really wanted to organize it all in one place. And so we really captured, I'd say, all of it in the book. And that's, if it has any drawback, it's that it's dense and it has too much to it. You know, we almost needed to pare it down a little bit, but I really encapsulated the totality of everything I've learned on my journey and all these tools that I've worked with. And we've put it into the book in a format that looks at a first mind, then body, and the unconscious mind, and really getting into the hidden factors that are holding us back, the things we don't see that are still in operation. And that's really the key to shifting and transforming, is getting to the unconscious mind. And then in the third part of the book, we really launch off into spirit and living our purpose. So the first two parts of the book are about self, taking that inner journey, getting to our spiritual core, that mystical core. And then in the third part, actually, as we live out our purpose, bringing that back out into the world, and how we show up and how we're integrating back into our everyday lives and touching the people we touch. And so that is the journey we're really offering people in the book. And it's a self-directed journey, because all of these courses are optional, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just suggesting, and we even say, if something doesn't work, you know, you read something and it's not resonating with you, throw it out, you know, don't use that piece, but just take what works for you and take this inner journey and learn that you have all the answers inside of you. You are an authority and a power in your own right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're really giving people a roadmap to discover that for themselves, to discover those answers.
Wow.
And the way it's written, even though there's a lot of material and it's sectioned into 3 parts, the way that it's written is there's, some content and teaching about a particular tool or insight. And then we often pivot to exercises. So I almost call it like a journal, because you can really journal your way through it. And then also there are real life, and sometimes my name is on them, transcripts of interaction or sessions with Michael. So you could kind of see a practice in use, and hopefully, and there's key concepts and summaries that we call out, because I love material that's easy to read and that it's kind of broken up. So even though it's some parts are maybe more challenging depending on where you're showing up with the book, but the energy that and the intention that we put in the book is that anyone who picks it up and starts it, or even picks it up, will start the transformation process, and that they'll get to points, some may be easier than others, but we've really kind of written it so it almost could be like a journal to work through.
Which is powerful. I mean, even when you think about manifesting, the power of our thoughts, and then being able to write things down, and how that can really amplify things, especially, when in our transformations. And so is there maybe an example of a strategy or some sort of practice that you want to share that you talk about in the book?
Sure. Let's consider someone who's struggling with self-worth. Okay, that's something that people,
mm-hmm.
that's a common one for a lot of people. Their self-esteem. Am I really worthy to have everything I want and have this full life, right? And so what happens is when someone has a certain limitation, it's usually rooted in an orientation and memories from the past. So one of the techniques we start to work with, and this is from the field of neuro-linguistic programming, is we start to ask, how is someone creating the experience they're having? We know we are creating our own realities, but this is really the study of how specifically people are doing that. And at the end of the day, in a very practical way, it's sensory-based information. So it's neurological data running these pathways, and it's pictures, sounds, feelings, smells, and tastes that are running on the internal parts of our experience, right? So just like we can see externally, we're also seeing a lot of imagery in our brain and feelings and all this internal orientation. So when we have an experience that we want to shift, what we do is we look at that experience like a program. Your brain is fine, the hardware is fine. It's a software issue, and sometimes that software is very outdated and it just needs an update.
It's
Right?
like many of us are working on Oregon Trail. You remember that computer program we used to play as kids?
Right.
We've got this little yellow box that's moving on the computer, right?
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
think of.
Or Pong.
Or Pong. Pac-Man. Yeah, and it's like those programs are outdated, and so how are we? How do we move through that? How do we update our programs?
Well, part of it we can do on our own, but again, we can't see the parts of ourselves we can't see, and that's where it helps to work with other people. We can do some of the journey solo and develop our practices and your yoga practices and our meditation and all these things that help, but to work with someone who's going to see our blind spots, right? And so that's where I come in. Is I get a lot of clients post therapy, and they're like, I understand why I am I understand where it's coming from, but the triggers are still happening, right? And I just want to be done with it, right? And so when we look at that programming, and I can get in and elicit how the person is doing what they're doing, then we can get to the organizing memories, usually the organizing data, those pictures. They're holding a memory from when I was 5, and my parents were busy and they were preoccupied, and therefore I wasn't getting the attention. Therefore, I installed the false belief that I wasn't worthy of love and attention, right? So that's an example of how something can manifest. But then what we do is we go into that memory and we time travel. So we're bringing resources from our present self into the memory of us as a child and installing that new orientation. So in a way, our inner child gets an update, or the memory gets an update.
Yeah.
Right. And when that happens, it's an automatic reset at the unconscious level. We don't have to remember to even have it be different. It begins to just be more automatic. It's more easy to just show up in that way because the past orientation is resolved and transformed.
Yeah. And the other day I was at Target and I saw this small child. She was probably 5 or 6 at the customer service desk sobbing because she went into the bathroom and her family had walked away, and she walked out and she kept saying, I thought they would wait for me. I thought they would wait for me. And I was immediately thinking, this is the program that is being created in this small child's mind right now. And the poor thing she was hysterical and she kept repeating, they left me. And I thought, oh my goodness, these are programs that we pick up as kids. And I had a flash of my life. My mom had forgotten to pick me up at school one time. Poor thing. She was busy, had a lot going on. And my teacher waited there with me. And I thought, is this a mere reflection? This poor child is a mere reflection of me and how I felt when my mom forgot to pick me up at school when I was 6 or 7. And so, like you talk about, just going back into those childhood programs, and they could be, you wouldn't think being at Target and someone leaving you while you go into the bathroom would set such a really deep seated program that you could play out well into your adult life. But
yeah.
These are things that, and that poor child, she probably won't even remember that. By the time she's 12, she won't even remember that happened. But it was very visual for me to see that, because I thought, oh my goodness, how many times do these little things happen that have now, like you talked about, the bricks have just kind of stacked up.
And we can think like, I'm an adult, that's not happening anymore, right? But neurologically, sometimes it's still happening in our brain. And so this is what happens at the unconscious level, is we don't realize, like, we've stacked all this stuff hierarchically, as we've progressed and matured, but that thing's still looming under the surface there, right? And it still pops up when our triggers happen or our buttons get pushed, right? That's what's happening, is this old program is getting activated again. And every time we get our buttons pushed, it's a call for awakening. It's actually a great opportunity to say, look, some still unresolved there. What do I need to take a look at? So in a way, when we get our buttons pushed, it's our consciousness saying, hey, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity here.
It's like that Office Max commercial with that big red button.
Right. And that's what I always thought was interesting. Like I have, really appreciated transformative work since my late teens. So I've gone through like vision board classes, and I've had affirmations posted all over. And those are helpful as reminders. But if you have like this lack of self-worth that's running a program underneath, and you're looking at that vision board every day, and you're, seeing yourself in that big old house, it's like there's programs that are running that actually are there to kind of keep you safe, as Michael's talked about, that seem kind of counterintuitive to getting what you want. But unless you shift those, then you're going to start behaving in a way that keeps you comfortable and safe, versus being able to switch that and start achieving some of those things that you want. And so that's why I started seeing him, because I know in some parts of my life, everything was amazing and things were flowing. But there were other parts where no matter how many affirmations I did, or meditations, guided meditations, if I was doing them right or not, or vision boards, it's like stuff wasn't happening. And I was kind of curious, like, why? What's going on? And is it just that I don't deserve those? Because then you could get into like self-criticism, and am I not doing it right? Or, I'm not good enough for that. And that's really where the magic and the gold lies, is being able to get into those and start shifting those. Because if not, you'll come up short. And that's a great reason to continue to criticize yourself, which is part of the problem as well.
Yeah. And I think, that's really important too, because Michael, you talked about how we don't always see our blind spots. And it's like, I think once you start learning how to heal, we feel like, oh, we can do it ourselves. We can do it ourselves. And, maybe 90% of the time we can, but there's that small portion that we don't see our own blind spot, and someone else can come in and fix that. And, there was a time when I had some severe back pain, and I was doing everything in my power that I knew to try and, move this through my body. Well, I actually booked a visceral manipulation session. It's like massage meets energy medicine. They're fantastic. The first session I got in there, and she moved it. And I thought, how did you do that? I've been working on this for like 4 months now, and you just moved it in one session. And she says, Tanya, I acted as a fulcrum, for you. So you couldn't see that. And sometimes we do need to reach out to others to be able to shift and move that energy within inside of us. And, Marcey and Michael, you've both talked about that, on the importance of, doing our own self-work, but also allowing and being open to working with others as well, which can be very, very beneficial. And so, what other services do you provide that you might want to share with the listeners?
Well, I do. We have a number of services. So I do, probably the most powerful is the private sessions. They're 2-hour intensives where I sit down with a client one-on-one, and we really transform all the things that are getting in the way and get to that spiritual place, and then again get a roadmap for how to bring that back out into the world. We're also we do workshops, and online workshops, and live retreats too. So and they can find all these resources on our website. It's www.loveguides.us. So Love Guides Us is how it reads. Because love is the true guide within each of us. So on the website, we have the retreat, we have private sessions, and I offer a free introductory session. So it's so important to know we're working with the right person. And that's why I offer this free session. It allows us to get to know each other. We can set that up over Zoom or FaceTime, and just dialogue. And I want to make sure that it's the right fit. So if I'm not the right fit, maybe there's another practitioner it is, but really supporting people to do the work. And then we also have a number of videos, different podcasts that we do. And so just there's lots of resources on there to support whatever it is. And then get the book. The book is just a great entry point. It's like the primer for all this stuff that really.
Yeah. And so is the book on Amazon, or where can people find the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
It's on Amazon, and there's a link right on our homepage on the website. So you can get directly on Amazon. And if you just search the Inside Guide on Amazon, it'll come up too. So.
Wonderful. And so, as we're wrapping up the show, is there anything else that you'd like, either of you would like to share that you feel maybe we didn't touch on today in the show?
I'll just say that the mountaintop experience, I'm sure based on your podcast, that a lot of your listeners have experienced those moments where they feel intense love and connection, and when they're really feeling their place in the world. That feeling is available every day. It's not something that's, a magical, mystical thing that happens, once in a while. And living from that space is something where it's the place where your dreams could come true, and you impact those around you. And that's really our intention, is to get this community of, folks that are feeling healthy, living their purpose, loving life, and getting them together, because our world needs it. Frankly, we need more connection. We need, people living their purpose and bringing their tools and talents out into the world. I mean, our world, our next generations need it. And so I'm excited to share it.
And we need more magic, mystery, and mysticism, right? I think
Yes.
we've all said those 3 words throughout this
Yes.
show, and, just bringing that back into our lives. And so, for all of you out there who are either watching or listening, check out Marcey and Michael's website, loveguides.us. Love guides us. I love that. When I wrote it down, that's exactly what I said in my head. And I said, cute. I really love that. So I picked up on that, the way that it was set out. So thank you so much for both of you spending time with us today on the show, and for the energy that you're putting out in the world, because like you said, the world definitely needs some more loving presence embodiment. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. And to all your listeners, you have the power within you. That's the primary message. You are a source and an authority, and just begin to listen on the inside, because it's all in there, and you have all the answers in you.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.